Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Western Spirit. Today, we have a very special guest, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. First of all, before I just get to your official titles, I just want to say that we see you everywhere, basically. Saw you not too long ago with Norman Finkelstein, debating him on Piers Morgan, I think it was, and I saw you in Al Jazeera a few times, and I'm going to ask you about that.
all the friendly places.
So I just want to give you your official title. You're the special envoy for the Foreign Ministry of Israel and the former deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. So first of all, it's a great honor to have you here. And
Thanks, Ariel.
And it's a privilege because, like you said, you're everywhere. So you came also to us. So, I want to maybe just before we get into specific questions, you've been, like we said, all over the place, speaking with all different types of people who are very, let's say, not so friendly, people who are friendly. What have you learned over the past, I guess, since October 7th, when you've been going to all these places trying to give the truth, not just Israel's perspective, but the truth? What have you learned, just in general terms?
Well, in general, I could say that I've learned that a lot more people love us than we think. So that's the first thing. The problem is that many of those people are just the silent majority, and they're being bullied by this crazy culture of lies, essentially. It's a really lethal combination between woke culture, woke mind virus, I would call it, and Islamist indoctrination via Qatar and Iran that has captured the hearts and minds of the young generation, especially in colleges, and you can't talk to them. That's the worst thing. It's in my day, when I was in college, Ariel, we used to have safe spaces to disagree. That doesn't exist anymore. You can't disagree. If you disagree, then you're a Zionist pig and you're a colonizer, baby killer. There's no room for, you have your opinion and I have my opinion. It doesn't exist anymore. And it's very sad. It's a very sad state of affairs. Having said that, like I said, I think most people actually know exactly what's going on. Just many of them, it's not their fight. They don't want to get involved, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, but when you go, let's say, on Al Jazeera or with the debate on Norman Finkelstein, first of all, I just want to ask in general, when you speak with these types of people, what do you think motivates them? Not they're behind the conspiratorial, but I mean, why do people, you think, I'm not talking about Islamists who obviously hate us for religious reasons, cultural reasons, etc. We see, people who support Hamas on the streets of New York, where I grew up. But people who come to debate you who are Western, who are people who grew up in the West, why do you think what is lacking in their understanding? Why are they so full of hatred?
I think this, again, going back to the woke, you don't understand how much woke has seeped into people. But what does it mean?
Yes.
It's a word that's thrown around. So let me tell you what it means. It means that these people have divided the world into two categories, the oppressor and the oppressed. And the more of a victim you are, the more of a miskin, let's say in our terms, you are, the more you deserve sympathy. And the less successful you are, the more of a victim you are. Now, even though the Jewish people have been the most persecuted people in world history, even though we built a country and nobody gave us anything, we did it all ourselves. It was our blood, our sweat, our tears. Us and the diaspora Jews, in other words, our people. Even though wherever we went, the professions we chose were because we weren't allowed in certain professions. Even though we have contributed enormously to the world, again, coming from nobody giving us anything, we are too successful to be the oppressed.
Yes.
So what happens is then we have to be the oppressor, because in that world there's nothing else. The oppressed and the oppressed, and it's all like a scale of victimhood, and we can't be victims. Because the Jewish people have never wanted to put ourselves in that category, because we are people that take our suffering and then put it side by side with looking forward, very rare. Yes, people can say, yeah, a lot of people talk about the Holocaust and the Shoah. I don't think we talk about it enough when you think about what it was. But even putting that aside, we built a country after a genocide. Who does that? Nobody.
Right.
And so we are too successful. We have succeeded in many fields. We're too visibly successful. When you ask people how many Jews are there in the world, they think there's 100 million. It's only 15 million Jews.
Yes.
Why? Because we punch above our weight. And so because we punch above our weight, we could never, ever be oppressed, even though we have been continuously oppressed throughout history.
And you know, Fleur, I just want to add something about this, is that in the Torah, in the Gemara, I think it is, where they say that if you're a poor person, it doesn't automatically mean that you're right. Meaning the whole point of the woke, it seems to me, is that when it's talking to judges, when a rich person and a poor person come before you, judge them the same. Don't just because he's poor automatically think that he's right, or if he's rich, it doesn't matter. And it seems that one of the things that the woke, this whole progressive extremist ideology, is that the more poor you are, the less successful you are, the more righteous you are.
Exactly.
So the more you, right.
Exactly.
So the more, I just want, the more you're able to show that you are not, you don't have any money, you don't have any skills, you don't have your culture is a dying culture, is a culture that's backwards, that treats women not good, that treats gays not good, in a weird way, that makes you righteous, that makes you right.
It makes you right. Absolutely, it makes you right. And on top of all of that, it's a very sick thing, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because what you're basically saying to people is, don't succeed.
Yes.
What you're basically saying to people is, I call it the bigotry of low expectation, which is exactly what the world has done with the Palestinians. It's okay that you're not transparent. It's okay that you're corrupt. It's okay you kill other people. It's okay you kill gays. It's okay you kill your own people. It's okay you marry 12-year-old girls. That's okay because you are oppressed and you don't know any better.
Yes.
That is the real racism. The low expectation of people who are just like everyone else.
It's a sort of infantilizing the Palestinians, making them like children, like they need to be, they can't be expected to be, to teach people not to kill each other.
That's a great word.
Or not to hate Jews.
Ariel, that's exactly the word I use. They infantilize them to the point that they've given them no responsibility.
Yes.
And so when you have no responsibility, you've got nothing to lose. So you can start wars and you can lose them, but it doesn't matter. There's nothing, nobody has to pay the price except your people, but you don't care about your people because your ideology is more important than your people. And so that is what's going on. And then the main Satan that people forget is not us, it's America. So Israel is kind of like an arm of this imperialist,
colonialist,
cruel, white colonialist entity. We're like an arm of that. And again, forget all the wonderful things America has done and achieved in the world. Forget the fact that they decolonized and they built an incredible country. Yes, a country with problems, the way that Israel also has problems. Forget all the opportunities that people of minorities get in America. No. If you're black or if you're this or if you're that, according to the woke culture, you're oppressed.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that there's so many minorities in America coming out and saying, well, this was what the election with Trump. The election with Trump was a referendum on woke. And thank God the clear-minded people of America said, no, this doesn't feel right to me. It's like the opposite of the American dream that we all grew up understanding what that was. It's the opposite. You shouldn't aspire because it's better to just be a victim.
Yeah. And I think the question is whether if we're ready, the Democrats are going to learn the right lessons from here. Because you've been seeing people saying on the New York Times editorial board, it's a side note, but we've been seeing people saying, we need to double down on identity politics because Donald Trump used white identity. But then it's very weird way to see it. Because,
look at his cabinet.
Yeah.
First of all, look at his cabinet. Secondly, there's so many now minorities in the Republican Party that it's just a ridiculous thing to keep hopping on about. You know, the sad thing is that I'm not sure they are going to learn their lesson. And what a friend of mine, I was just in America, told me, is that the reason they won't is because the machinery of the Democratic Party has been overtaken by these radical wokes.
Yes.
And
Fleur, when you go in America to speak in campuses and all these events, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences as being, like we mentioned in the beginning, you're an emissary of the Israeli government now, the foreign ministry. You go and speak to people, try to tell them the truth, try to tell them about what's happening in Israel, try to debate and have discussions. And like you said, a lot of this woke stuff means that people aren't even willing to listen because your words are dangerous. So maybe give us a little bit about the background of your
well, they couldn't
experiences.
in college campuses. They've tried to get me to debate people. Nobody was willing to debate me because I represent the government. So I've only had debates really on TV. Al Arabiya is a channel that I've also debated quite a few Palestinians in. Al Jazeera refused to do because what they now, since October 7th, all they do is twist everything and edit it.
Right.
I like to do things live because then they can't edit my words, which they've done. BBC, I also only do live. And so, no, nobody wants to debate me. But the worst thing is that in England, I was just in England and I did 2 universities. The worst thing is that these kids are so scared. They're so scared that they keep the whole thing so hush-hush that they invite people personally to come to these lectures because they're too scared to announce it. And that's, I think, even a worse state of affairs, the fear of the Jewish students to even be able to identify as Jews.
Are you worried, Fleur, just from your experiences? You said in the beginning that you think that still most of the people in the West do support Israel, do understand. But then you said that the young people, it's a problem, especially on colleges and universities. Are you worried that the next generation of leaders in the West are being brainwashed as we speak? So our leaders are all educated, it seems, in the West. They're all people who came out of universities. Most of them in America, at least, are from the elite universities. And we see what's happening there. Harvard, I was in Colombia a few months ago, was meeting with Jewish students. It's a scary situation.
Yeah.
These are the next leaders.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. It is scary, but at the same time, there's a backlash right now. And I think what you've seen with the Trump victory is a backlash. And so in this backlash, what you have is people coming out of college, some people who just happy to have gotten through, who are rebelling against that type of indoctrination. I think you're seeing the rise of the influence of the podcasters, like Rogan. You've seen Elon Musk has incredible popularity.
Yeah.
And so I think that social media, however bad it can be, at the moment, it's beginning, there's a balance redressing that is starting on social media.
I hope you're right.
I think that people, it's very interesting. Also, you have the legacy media in America is really going down the tubes. And then you have the rise of these other podcasts, etc. And I think it's because people aren't stupid and they're beginning to understand that they're being lied to.
Yes.
And when something's fishy, it has to end. Eventually it ends. And so you're beginning to see the unraveling of the legacy media. And again, if the legacy media, like the Democratic Party, are not going to look in the mirror and say, look, this has gone too far. It makes absolutely no sense. Unless they do that, then I think what you're going to see is successive Republican governments, like in many countries around the world where you just literally have one party because the other party is ridiculous, or they're now communists or whatever. And the rise of this more intimate podcast media rather than legacy media, or other channels like Fox News, and in England they've got Talk TV, they've got other things, but again, people are just fed up of being lied to. Tell the news. That's all people want. Don't bring your own agenda into it. And everybody's bought into it. And of course, Ariel, we can't forget that there is also anti-Semitism. It didn't go away. It never did. And you can make many causes. There are many causes you can say people are anti-Semitic, and we can talk about this. But ultimately, if it's there and it's just another excuse, another, it's another definition of anti-Semitism. It's an evolving, as Rabbi Jonathan Sachs used to say, it's a mutating virus. This is the mutating virus. Anti-Semitism also kind of shapes itself into the ills of the day, the scapegoatism of the day. And that's where we're at right now. The Jews are always an easy scapegoat. Why? Because we are successful. But the reason why we're successful is because we work hard and harder. And that's what people are not seeing anymore. But again, it's generational.
And Fleur, one of the things that we should say is that Semitism is different from racism, other types of racism, in the sense that if someone's a racist against African Americans, Black people, is that they see them as being lesser. The anti-Semitism is a conspiracy theory where the Jews are being looked at as controlling everything, as being stronger than everyone else.
It's pernicious. It gives us evil intentions.
Right.
Which is the difference between that and other discriminations. You're right.
And why is this so, I think, on the woke left being so strong lately, is that the whole point of the woke left is that no one is responsible for themselves.
Exactly.
There is a higher power that is, like you said, the oppressor is oppressing you. You're not responsible for your actions. And therefore, it's the Jews because they're so successful and they're first.
And
so it makes sense.
Nobody asks you to be accountable.
Exactly.
And it's really the opposite of the meritocracy that always was the American dream. Yes. That's what's ironic. America is the only country in the world, one of the few countries in the world, where you can literally go with $5 in your pocket and become a billionaire because of hard work, which is what happened to Elon Musk and successive Jewish families who came literally with nothing and just built their way up. And that is very dangerous for society, to kind of kill that a spirit of entrepreneurship and aspiration. Very dangerous for society. And you see it in the universities. You wait. These Ivy League universities are now accepting people mainly on identity, and not the best students, but not only that, they are limiting, listen to this, Jews and Asians, because Jews and Asians work really, really hard. Too successful. So they're limiting the best students and bringing in lesser students because of this woke ridiculousness. But what's going to happen eventually is, when these universities get less Nobel Prizes, when these universities are getting less grants because just the quality of the student body or the faculty is inferior, then it'll be over for them too. And it's going to take 10, 20 years, but it will also happen.
Fleur, one last question on this issue that I thought of as we're speaking is that one of the things we saw in America, especially with this backlash against the woke politics, was the gender gap. So men in America were extremely against this woke stuff. The polls all showed this, the exit polls showed this. Men were very much against this. Do you see also, and women were a little less, let's put it that way. Do you see that also in the way people look at Israel? Is there a gender gap, or am I reaching too far?
Whether in Israel there's a gender gap about
the support for Israel. Do you think that support in the world? I don't know. I've never thought about it until we were speaking.
I'm not sure about that, because women maybe tend to be more empathetic, and so when they see images of injured Palestinian children, as we all feel bad for them. Question is, who's to blame? It's not whether they're suffering or not. We all know they're suffering. We're all suffering. I'm not quite sure, but I'm actually disappointed in the feminist movement, not because of the obvious, not because they didn't stand up for us and our women when our women were being raped and brutalized. Not that even. Of course, that's very disappointing. But I'm a feminist. I'm a really unapologetic feminist. And what's really disappointing to me is that they've bought into this woke culture to the extent that they are destroying the feminist cause by basically allowing men to take over. Because ultimately, look, if you have a sex change and you're a woman, okay, you're a woman. But if you haven't had a sex change and you are physiologically still a man, and you want to go and play women's sports and go into a changing room and you still have male genitalia, I'm sorry. That's just essentially kicking women out of our own spaces. And I think we've worked too hard as a movement to go back. And this is what's happening. And I think a lot of these women don't understand how detrimental this is to women. And real feminists think like me. Because the extreme transgender movement, and I'm not saying all transgenders are like this, because I've got many friends who feel exactly like I do. The extreme transgender movement is basically kicking women out of our own spaces. We can't even be women on our own now. We have to have men involved. And so that to me is anti-feminist.
I agree. Let's now talk to what's happening on the ground here. So in the past, I guess 3-4 months, basically, we've seen the entire area where we are right now. We're both in Israel right now. We've seen the entire area just change totally. So Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, assassinated. The number 2 was assassinated. Their entire command and control people were assassinated. I think thousands of their terrorists were killed. Thousands were wounded and taken out of commission. In Gaza, we killed Sinwar, and basically, except for specific areas in the center of the Gaza Strip, basically the entire Hamas infrastructure is destroyed. In Syria, Bashar Assad ran away. We don't know what's going to happen there, but it's for sure historic in the sense that yesterday, when we're speaking on Sunday, Saturday night, the now number 1 in Hezbollah said our main oxygen supply from Iran is cut off.
It's cut off.
Right. So even if Al Qaeda takes over Syria, Hezbollah is never going to be able to recover if this continues. And so Iran itself is in a bad situation. There's all these rumors that they're scared of Israel attacking their nuclear installation sites because they have no air defense systems anymore. We took them out last time when we attacked them. Maybe put this into, perspective of where we were on October 7th, and the lowest of lowest points to where we are now strategically.
Well, it's night and day. Listen, October 7th caught us by surprise. We can blame a lot of people for that. There were multiple screw-ups on so many levels to get to that point. We can't pretend otherwise. And we were down. This time last year, we were down. We were down. We had, I think maybe some of the hostages had come home. There were still many in there. We were losing boys and girls in the front lines every day. We were being attacked by the North. We had 75,000 evacuees around the country. Jerusalem actually housed a lot of those evacuees. We were in really, really bad shape, but more than anything, psychologically and morally, we were kicked, we were bruised, we were battered. And I just feel that this year, notwithstanding the grief, the endless grief of the families of the fallen soldiers, of the families of the hostages, the ones that are alive and the ones that are dead, notwithstanding all that grief, we started fighting back. We're back. We came back with energy, with ingenuity, with incredible operations, with incredible strength. And basically the Middle East as we knew it is gone. And the homogeny of Shia extremism sponsored by the Islamic Republic of Iran, Qatar, is on the down. They're down now.
Yes.
And we have to keep on kicking until they're gone. And if the world had common sense, they would see that the Islamic Republic is the Hitler of today. I've been saying this for a year. They are the Hitler of today. In the 1930s, Europe did not have to acquiesce to Hitler, and they did. And Chamberlain came back and said, peace in our time. And he was being played. That is exactly what the Islamic Republic of Iran has been doing to successive democratic governments for the last 10, 15 years. They have no intention of changing in any way. And I'm sure today they regret with every inch of their being that they got involved with that psychopath Sinwar in what they thought was going to be the end of Israel. Boy, did they misjudge us. They always do. Our enemies always underestimate us. They think that we've become too comfortable in our high-tech world and high-tech money and our soft bellies and our sushi, they think that we've become soft, and they have no idea that bigger empires have tried to get rid of us, and we're still here.
Yes. And I can tell you that, just as you're saying, I think of friends that lost limbs in the past few months, and the spirit is something that, well, before I lost my eyesight, I was in also reserves and everything, but I've never seen people so willing. People just want to go back and fight. People want
Well,
to go
that's
back.
the thing. The bravery, the resilience, the resolve of this is something Douglas Murray talks about all the time. And he's right. He said, we didn't know what this generation was going to be like. We didn't know. They were untested, right? They were having fun at the beach and at parties and at raves. And why not? Like all their counterparts around the world. What they didn't realize is they're all lions inside. That's what they didn't realize.
Fleur, do you think, how do you look back at President Biden? He's going to leave office in about 39 days or so, I think, at this point. And when this episode will air, maybe 37, 36 days, whatever. About a month. Do you think that in the beginning he came to Israel after October 7th? I think the week after or so, he was very supportive. He showed us that he cared. He said, I'm a Zionist too, a few times. But then it seemed during the time, like he stopped the weapons shipments, the public things that his people in his administration, including him, would say would be very critical of Israel. Never, it seemed to me, it was always like double-siding the issue. Every time that he would say something pro-Israel, he would say, oh, but you have to stop killing all these people in Gaza. There's too little humanitarian aid. It was never, we support Israel 100% full stop. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, the war may have been faster if he had.
Right. Give us a little bit about how you think, looking back, Israelis will look at Biden during the war.
I feel in a way mixed about Biden, because I do agree that he came, and that morally what he did for us that week when he came and he stood here, and you could see he felt our pain. You could really see it, that he felt our pain. Also, he's a man who's known a lot of loss. People forget this.
Yes.
He lost his wife and his son in a car accident when his son was little and his wife was young. And then he lost another son to a brain tumor. So he's lost 2 children. This is not a man who doesn't know tragedy. Okay? And I could feel that. I could feel that when he was here. But then he got completely influenced and taken in by 2 things. One is mainstream media's coverage of the war that then affected his electorate. 2 is he had an election coming up, and he felt that he couldn't be so pro-Israel because the American woke, again, the progressives were having a fit about it. And 3, and I think this one's the most important, Biden was never really in charge. It was the Obama people that remained, or he brought back in his White House, or at least the Obama doctrine, the Obama way of thinking, which has been toxic for this region. Obama strengthened our enemies and weakened allies. That's what he did. Obama lives in this woke world. That's the world he lives in. And ultimately, he believes that he can save the Islamists from themselves. He has this Messiah complex on top of it because he has Muslim background, because his father was a Muslim. He thinks he's the Messiah. He's the big uniter. He could do what nobody could do. And look, the man was the first black man to be the president of the United States. Okay, he's got a reason to be very proud that he did something completely historic. But at the same time, he has a complete misunderstanding of the world. And I can tell you, with my Arab friends in the Gulf, in Saudi, they couldn't wait for Trump to come back. Because in the Arab world, more than anywhere, and this is what I've learned from them since I've been involved in Abraham Accords work, is that the Arabs respect people who respect themselves. That's what I've learned from them. I already had it in me because I'm Sephardi, so my families come from Arab cultures in the Arab world. But that's ultimately what a lot of these progressives, and a lot of, I think, people in this country as well, on the left wing, mainly Ashkenazi elites, They don't seem to understand
Yeah.
that people who respect themselves. And who respects themselves? People who will come with strength and their own values to the table. You can turn yourselves. I tell this, Israelis don't seem to understand that this is not a territorial conflict. If they did, we'd be in a very different place.
Fleur, how do you think Trump's policy? We know who the people around him are going to be at this point, barring some crazy thing that the Senate won't approve everyone, but we know basically his direction and the type of people he wants with him on the foreign policy front. What do you think his policy differences as regards to Israel will be? What should we expect?
Oh, well, first of all, he's not going to slow roll arms or boycott arms. He's just going to give us everything we need to finish the job. He doesn't want war. But I think he understands that Israel has to finish decisively. And so he's not going to stop us from doing anything. In fact, he's going to let us do a lot more than even we think we can do, and hopefully equip us to do it.
Fleur, one last thing I wanted to ask about that. You mentioned the Abraham Accords. So I just wanted to get this out there. You are the co-founder of the United Arab Emirates and Israel Business Council and the Gulf Israel Women's Forum.
That's
right. Right. So first of all, can you give us a little bit about how you founded this thing? Why did you feel that you needed to do this after the Abraham Accords? It wasn't too long ago.
Well, first of all, the UAE Israel Business Council, my co-founder and I, Doran Barak, we co-founded it before the Abraham Accords was announced because we felt something was in the air. He's a businessman in the region. I was very, very close to the David Friedman's embassy when they were here in Jerusalem, when they moved to Jerusalem. As deputy mayor, I was very much in touch with them. I was their point person in the mayor's office. And so I felt something was up, and we got together. We said, let's put a framework to what is already happening. And what was already happening is a lot of Israeli businesses working in the UAE before. There was 200-300 companies already working through third parties, white labeling. And so that was what we did. And then we didn't dream that a month later we would be witnessing the signing of the Accords. It was momentous, historic. So I'm very happy to have had a little part in that, in the people-to-people piece that ensued the signing. Because, the last thing we wanted was peace like with Jordan and Egypt that stayed very much in the higher echelons of society and never really trickled down. You never had
a cold peace.
It's a cold peace, but it's a peace that stayed on the top and never trickled down. So we wanted this to be a different piece, and we really achieved it.
Yeah.
So it was so wonderful that the first year was like a honeymoon. I can't explain it to you. Everybody was so curious about each other, about each other's religions, and it was almost like we got permission to like each other again and call each other cousins again. It was really quite something. I'm so happy I got to live those moments of real hope and light for the region. And I do think we're going to get back to it. I do.
Do you think more countries will join the Abraham Accords now that Trump?
I think that Saudi will be the next country, and that'll happen within a year. That's my prediction. Yeah. Because what we see in Saudi today is what we saw in the UAE before it was signed, which is there are Israeli companies working in Saudi.
Yeah.
Many. Building smart cities.
But are they ready to, as a society? I know that he's done a lot of reforms in terms of education, women's rights, and took a lot of anti-Semitic stuff out of their curriculum and the schools. But still, they don't really I don't think a lot of people in Saudi Arabia love the Jews, or maybe I'm wrong.
We don't need them to love the Jews. Ultimately, look, that we have strategic enemies together, like the Islamic Republic. They're scared of them, and they want America's protection. They want America's protection. That's why they will make peace with us. And also, remember, these societies are very much leader-led. It's not like Israel, where people feel free to disparage our leaders on a daily basis. It's not the same as the UAE. The UAE, they actually adore their ruler. Wherever he goes, they go. It's not quite the same. It's a much bigger society also. And extremism was much more embedded in Saudi. But I think that people understand that MBS can take them to a new place, can take them to the future. They don't have to be a country without opportunity. And I do believe that ultimately, look, leaders need to lead. And then people follow. You can't be, this is the problem with American leaders or the Democratic Party. You can't be unequivocal. You can't be unequivocal. You have to do what you have to say what's right. You can't be, oh, this and that and talking out of two mouths. You can't, because in the end, you don't satisfy anyone.
Yeah.
You just have to go with your truth. Look at Javier Milei in Argentina. He's a perfect example. What he did was painful, but he's gotten them out of inflation.
Yes.
He's gotten them out of hyperinflation. The economy's never done the economy
and he has
in
good
50
approval
years.
numbers.
His approval numbers have gone up even though people are suffering, because he's gone with his truth and he's improving the situation. That's what people have to do. Yeah. Enough taking polls before you make a decision. People need leaders. Yeah. That's what they need.
Fleur, I want to ask you one last question before we finish off. So a lot of our viewers are obviously not from Israel, but they're very interested in Israel. And I think that one of the things that people looking in from the outside see a lot of times are the internal strifes within Israel. So I live right in Petach Tikva, which is next to where the former Attorney General lives, and I live right near, if anyone knows, Kikar Goren, which is where all the protests started like 8 years ago when Netanyahu's cases started opening. So every Saturday night for the past 8 years, we've had very big protests here, and during the last year before October 7th with the judicial reform, and the Israeli society seems to be on edge for a number of years now. How do you see what's happening? Are you worried that we're not going to be able to come back and be cohesive, or do you see hope? Because it seems we're going back to these protests. Not that I have a problem with the protests per se, but they do represent a chasm within society, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think it's very sad, actually, because you can see it in many places in the world that the world is polarized, and Israel is no different. The problem in Israel is that it's not about left and right anymore.
Yes.
It's about Bibi and no Bibi. It's this cult personality, which was created partly by him and his people, which have polarized people, because it's the same people really morphing into different things. So 10 years ago, it was no Bibi, crime minister, and that turned into the Demokratia movement of the judicial reforms. And then they've kind of taken over the hostage family narrative, and it kind of rolls into one. And, I feel very bad for the hostage families, because I do think that many of them have been hijacked by a much more deeper political movement that has nothing to do with them. They're just using them. And it's very sad, actually, very, very sad. And yes, but the Jewish people have always been people of argument. The question is, again, how do you argue? And what I do tell my American counterparts is that in this country, I can still sit down with my friends who think exactly the opposite to me. We can have an argument. Sometimes it ends up better than in other times, but we can continue to be friends. And we can do that in Israel. We can do that in Israel. And I don't think, and in America, my friends tell me that the family members don't talk to each other now. They thought that this one voted for Trump. It's awful. So I still think that we have the privilege of being able to disagree in safe spaces. Having said that, I don't know whether the day after Bibi, whenever that will be, it will end, or it will morph into something else.
Right.
But it's a very toxic, very, very toxic, that people have become just so crazy about everything,
From both sides, I think.
To the point that you can't give people credit for even the good things that are happening. And that's a problem. I believe I'm a moderate. And even though people would say I'm center right, I'm the old style Likudnik, I'm the Begin type of Likudnik, I'm a liberal economically, and all of that jazz. I'm a feminist. I'm very much pro-LGBTQ. I'm a liberal in the true sense of the word. I believe in live and let live. I believe religion and state should have more separations, even though I'm religious. So I guess I'm a contradiction to many people. But ultimately, that people are nuanced. And so I don't like it when people try to put people in this box or that box, or put themselves, because ultimately, we're all very upset. I mean, I had the worst year of my life, like many of us did. I've lost two parents, and this is still the saddest year of my life. Very traumatized by what happened. I have children. I have a child in the army. We're all very traumatized, and it'll take years. It will never get over this. It'll take years to get over this. It's changed us forever.
Yes.
With all of that, I just think that when bad things happen, yes, you can blame the people, but when good things happen, you also have to give credit. And so I'm just one of those people that not everybody's good and not everybody's bad. And when they tell me that he's an enemy, I don't talk to me like that.
Yes.
We're all compatriots. We're all Zionists. We're all Jews here, and even with our Arab counterparts, we all want the best for our country. And so I can't take it when people tell me from both sides, this one wants the downfall of the country and that one wants the downfall of the country. I'm like, let's just take a breath and understand that people see things differently, but that we all have to live here together. And in fact, if something worries me much more than the jihadists around us, it's our own internal discourse,
Yes.
deteriorating into a discourse of hatred, blaming each other for being traitors. And I can't. That's something that we really need to avoid. We need more prominent people to come out and say, this is not the discourse. Unfortunately, I don't see it in the Knesset so much. And I think we need new leaders. That's what I think
agree.
we need.
And also, I would just say that on the security level, our enemies saw us fighting, and I think that's one of the reasons why they chose now to
100%.
attack us.
Not only that, they saw us fighting, and they saw something which had never happened, and I wish I was wrong. But I was interviewed in July 2023 on a podcast, and I said to them, the Achim Leneshek, the calling for the refusal of service, these were my words, will open the doors of hell. And I hate to say that I was right.
Yeah.
It opened the doors to hell. And so you can blame Bibi all you want, but the share of the blame has to be taken by people who still till today are talking about refusal of service. That is the most dangerous thing that has happened in the history of the state of Israel. The refusal or calling, but prominent leaders calling for the refusal of service.
And also, I just want to say it's a double-edged sword, because now it's a right-wing government. Tomorrow it'll be a left-wing government that want to make peace.
What happened with the Natkut? What happened with the disengagement?
Yeah.
There were right-wing, kippah-wearing soldiers crying as they were evacuating families. That's the nature of the beast. We are a democracy, and the army is under that democracy. Anything that breaks that down is extremely dangerous. And so I really, till today, I can't forgive those people who call for the refusal of service.
Yeah, I agree. And the people who do it now, it's like unbelievably disgusting. Yeah.
On Channel 12,
the former Attorney General of Israel.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. The Attorney General is calling for breaking the law. Where are we?
Exactly. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, it was a pleasure talking to you. I think I have much more questions, but we don't have a lot of time. I want my audience to go to sleep too long. So I want to keep them short and sweet. So hopefully we'll have you back on again. We said we'll do an episode also in Hebrew. So hopefully we'll do that soon.
Thank you, Ariel.
And there we'll talk about more local stuff, hopefully. So for our Hebrew listeners and our local Israeli friends. So thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Ariel. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Western Spirit podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. See you next time.